Brigavaha,
all
the descendants of Brigu. Pratu Uttamam, the most important sacrifice. Named Ashwamedha. Jajachakshata. They observe. Arat. Nearby. Uditam. Risen. Yata. Light. Ravin. Ravi means the sun. Translation, and there is no purpose. While engaged in performing the sacrifice in the field known as Brigu Kutch on the northern bank of the Narmada River, the Brahminical priests, the descendants of Brigu, saw Vamanadev to be like the sun rising nearby. Just a couple of points here. Bali Maharaj is the Yajaman. He's the one organizing and arranging all these great yajna on the bank of the river Narmada. How many of you have been? You must have been to Narmada, Yash? You're from Gujarat, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
You've been to the Narmada River?
When I was younger.
When you were younger. You're from a different part of Gujarat?
It's not too far, but it's not that close either.
Okay. So, very big river. This Narmada River is one of the holy rivers of India. Flowing through, this case, here, through Gujarat, through Maharaja, through Maharashtra and so on. And on the northern bank of that river, the Bali Maharaj has arranged and engaged Viks or priests to perform this yajna in a field known as Brigu Kutch. Brigu being the great saintly person, the head of discipline, a line, you could say, a brahminical line of priests, Brahmins, and so on. Brigu Kutch, the field of Brigu. Now, if you go there to the Narmada River, and in fact, if you catch a train from Mumbai, to Delhi, usually, the train goes to a place called Barguch. And that is the actual, it's the same thing. Brigu Kutch has become Barguch. The name of that town where this yajna was being performed is still there. Barguch is quite a moderate town on the bank, northern bank of the river Narmada, where Bali Maharaj was performing his great yajna, gaining tremendous power. He's already conquered the universe, and now he's going to become even more unconquerable. And performing this appears to be Ashwamedha Yajna, and of course by the arrangement of desire, Aditi and the demigods, the Lord has appeared as the Vamanadev, dwarf Brahmin boy, in order to frustrate this great yajna, Bali Maharaj. He was very faithful in taking shelter of the descendants of Brigu, the Brahmins in that line of succession. He's becoming very powerful. So go on to the next verse, and again the word Vitvija is mentioned, the priests. They're basically priests, and they don't take responsibility beyond that. So philosophy is there in this day and age. O king, the next verse. O king, because of Vamanadev's bright effulgence, the priests, along with Bali Maharaj, and all the members of the assembly were robbed of their splendor. Sometimes they say, in a desert, a castor oil plant is very big. It's not very big, but you don't get many trees growing in deserts. So even a little plant appears to be very prominent. like a glowworm at night. Have you seen glowworms at night?
Yeah.
Here in France, you get glowworms down the tides? Yeah, you've seen them in France. You get them, do you, Gopal?
Yes, but less and less now.
Less and less, huh? Even they're fading out in Kali Yuga. So in India, you see a lot of glowworms, especially in the countryside. And they're another amazing happening by chance, that there's these, completely by chance, there's these kind of flying creatures, and they have lights at night, you know. They light up at night. And it's very pretty when you see hundreds of them all dancing around, or lights on. But what happens when the sun comes up? Do you see them? Same with the stars, right? Maybe a big star in the sky, but when the sun rises, you don't see the stars. You might see a little bit of the moon, but kind of faint. In the presence of the sun, they have no splendor. So similarly, all these Brahmins, including Bali Maharaj, they're all kind of eclipsed in the presence of Vamadev, who's so brilliant as the sun, entering therein. And the same thing, you could say, in many circles, you know, of association, even in our own Krishna consciousness, when somebody may have a little bit more, let's say, knowledge, or maybe some more potency or something than we do. But then when someone who's pure, somebody really potent comes along, it really stands out. And their presence is beyond that of others. Not because they're trying to establish it, just by their very presence alone. Thus they began to ask one another whether the sun god himself, has the sun god appeared? Maybe Sanat Kumar has appeared, or the fire god had personally come to see the sacrificial ceremony. Who is this effulgent person? Sometimes they're a little bit bewildered. Of course, in different circles, people will be recognized according to the circle. The circle of drunkards, they may not recognize a saintly person. They're a disturbance rather than an addition. Go away, get out of here. Or mundane materialists, they can't relate. They recognize if some, so-called big dignitary enters in, or a beautiful, by material standards, woman appears, and everyone, attention. Or if the president arrives, the manager of the company, whatever it is, some big shot, famous person, other people are like, but they're only amongst, you could say, what we say, Protestant, can't remember exactly. But who cares about being praised amongst a group of asses? Asses made when a big ass comes in. And they're down. But so what? How long will it last, and what is the depth of such so-called, greatness? Skin deep, artificially placed in that position. Although they have some Shakti, but it's temporary and it's material. And generally, grossly materialistic people, they don't particularly, they may do, but not necessarily recognize even a saintly person. They don't have any money, they may not, materially speaking, be so attractive, whatever. Because they're looking for material things. And it's the same thing in different species, even amongst different people. They see, I remember one time I was on a railway station in Watford in England, and it was going somewhere. And there was this couple, man and woman there, and they were, no detrimental, but they were dreadfully deformed. Both of them were deformed, and they had features which, to us, would appear rather ugly. Things coming out here, no, only a few bits of hair on the head, nose like a kind of like squash tin can or something. And, just not attractive to most people. But to them, they were super attractive. They were glorifying each other, how beautiful you are. I was quite amazed to hear it. And they were seeing it like that. People see things differently, according to our conditioning. But these were all Brahmins on the field of Brigadier. So they were right in recognizing this effulgent personality, and not just because they were beautiful, but because they could ascertain that this person had spiritual, so powerful spiritual strength as well as whatever. They were effulgent. And there are many occasions when people may be bewildered by the externals. In the case of Vamanadeva, it was both external and internal. But sometimes who was that? Satyajit, in Dwarka, he obtained this stone, this special stone, which was given to him by the sun god, which could produce gold. It was so brilliant. Wherever he went, he was just like, he just looked like the sun god, And people said, "Hi, the sun god has come to Dwarka." It looked so effulgent. It was because he possessed this stone, this special gift from the sun god, which could produce gold. But he himself, of course, he was also a powerful person, but not anywhere near on the level of the sun god. But people easy. And when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Vrindavan, on the Kalya, the lake of Kalya, some people were bewildered. They were thinking that Krishna has reappeared on the lake at night. They were seeing some kind of lights on the lake, and it looked like maybe that's Krishna has appeared again in Vrindavan. But it was a boatman, a fisherman on the lake. And he had some lights on his boat. Sometimes people are bewildered like this. They're always bewildered. They're heroes, they're worshipable heroes, if you want to call it that, according to their conditioning. Maybe a sportsman, a musician, a beautifully formed body of somebody, a powerful, rich person, a strong person, whatever. Not usually a renounced person, really. But some material. And that is not, to say, it's not the real glory, which Vamanadeva is why he's effulgent, is because of he's the Supreme Lord. But a spiritually advanced person is effulgent because the soul in everywhere, the soul in every living entity, there's a soul. However, most of the souls are pretty covered by the modes of nature. So when somebody is actually spiritually advanced, they will be effulgent. We saw that with Prabhupada. Even ordinary people could see that this man is like golden, shining almost. Effulgent. Maybe they could recognize that much, someone. And certainly the devotees could experience this presence of Srila Prabhupada. So they all, basically speaking, they all became humble in the presence of Vamanadeva. While the priests of the Bhrigu dynasty and their disciples talked and argued in various ways, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vamanadeva, holding in his hands the rod, the umbrella, and a water pot full of water, entered the arena of the Ashvamedha sacrifice. Even though Bali Maharaj is the head of the demons, and you could say materially motivated, still highly respecting the Brahmins. Highly respecting. And in those days, a little boy, he was a little boy, they could enter in, Brahmins and children, they could enter anywhere. It wasn't like, perhaps like now, you can't come in here, there's dogs and gates and this and that. But even when we were children, I remember in the town I lived in, We were living in an industrial street, and there was no gardens. No one had a single garden, not one. No gardens. It was just the door went straight onto a little footpath and then straight onto the street. There was no garden at the back. Street on the same thing on the back side. Boxes, one after the next, all joined. No, nothing between the houses. 100 houses all joined together. You had 2 rooms down and 2 rooms up, and no bathroom and no kitchen. That's how people live in England. So, but nonetheless, no one had a car. That was another unique thing. No one had a television either, nor what to speak of a phone. They weren't heard of. So it was a different era. This was 70 years ago, more or less. And but every door was open. Every door. When you were a kid, you could go into anyone's house, and immediately they would give you a cup of, Kaiser, some kind of drink kids like that. Very healthy drink, all made of 100% chemicals, very healthy. And some chocolates or a biscuit or something. Every house. We would do that. It's like, it was fun. You'd go from house to house and get in a drink and a chocolate. And every house was like that, The doors were open to all the kids. It was like one big family, the whole street. Even though we had no cars and phones and this and that, the doors were open. Not much to lose. No computers in there, no mobiles in there, no cars to smash. People live everyone's on the same level. Everybody knew each other. You knew every single person in the street. It's a different world than now. So like this, Ramadeva could just walk in, just like that, because he was a Brahmin boy, and he was a child, so who would stop him? And he was beautifully effulgent. Just like when Sukadeva Goswami entered into the assembly of Parikshit Maharaj and the other saintly persons, everyone recognized, wow, who is this? Who is this great personality? Appearing as a Brahmin boy, wearing a belt of straw, a sacred thread, an upper garment of deerskin, and matted locks of hair, Lord Vamanadeva entered the arena of sacrifice. His brilliant effulgence diminished the brilliance of all the priests and their disciples, who thus stood from their seats and welcomed the Lord properly by offering obeisances. Nowadays they tell you, get out, go away, get rid of this guy. They welcomed him, stood out of respect. They see he was just like the sun. The sun is the emperor of all the planets and stars in the universe. Maharaj, jubilant at seeing Lord Vamanadeva, whose beautiful limbs contributed equally to the beauty of his entire body, offered him a seat with great satisfaction. Interesting culture. Bali Maharaj is the head of the demons, but he was so happy to see this effulgent Brahmin. Of course, he may have been thinking he's come to grace my assembly. He's come to, benedict us, to bless this yajna. You may think that such a great effulgent person has entered in. How fortunate we are. At this point, he didn't know the intention of Lord Vamanadeva. We'll see that in a little while. So, Vedic culture, when anybody comes, it's not even a person of, let's say, a great personality comes, but anybody who enters one's house, one's supposed to receive them with the greatest respect as the representative of God, even the one's enemy. And the minimum one's supposed to offer, is kind words, water, and a sitting place. That is the minimum. And if one doesn't receive guests properly, then the guest, if he's not satisfied, knowingly or unknowingly, deposits his bad karma in your house. It said it's like the residence of a jackal. A house becomes like a residence for jackals. If you don't know what a jackal is, who knows what a jackal is? What's a jackal?
Dog or wolf.
Yeah, something between a dog and a wolf that howls at night. They're looked down as a kind of pretty, let's say, not a very elevated animal species. A jackal, a low kind of species in that, considered like that. So the house becomes like that for a suitable residence for jackals. They howl usually at night. We hear, maybe not here. We hear the howling deer. You know the deer? They make this weird noise at night. Have you heard it? I don't know how to. I don't know. It sounds like a funny doggy-like sound all night. Sometimes it goes on for ages. Of course, you probably don't notice it, but down there I notice it. Yeah. Sometimes of course in the material, birds also, beautiful birds often don't have a very nice voice. Yeah, crocking voice, you know. Same thing with deer, that was a sublime animal in many ways, but his voice, my goodness. Sounds like almost like a jackal. We worshipped. So we worshipped him. Bali Maharaj was very happy, thus offering a proper reception to the Lord, who is always beautiful to the liberated soul. Bali Maharaj worshipped him by washing his lotus feet. He gained great benediction by this. Knowingly or unknowingly, he was worshipping the Supreme Lord in the proper way, and was going to get the right result. Not from the material point of view, it wouldn't be seen as the right result, it would be seen as a disaster. And many people give up their worship of God because they don't get what they're asking, and they think, what's the use of this God? I prayed for money and I didn't get any. Or something like that. But he was, without asking anything in return, he just worshipped him. Lord Shiva, the best of demigods, who carries on his forehead the emblem of the moon, receives on his head with great devotion the Ganges water emanating from the toe of Vishnu. Being aware of religious principles, Bali Maharaj knew this. Consequently, following in the footsteps of Lord Shiva, he also placed on his head the water that had washed the Lord's lotus feet. Very nice verse. And there is a purport here by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Shiva is known as Gangadhara. Nice, Gangadhara. Gangadhara. Or one who carries the water of the Ganges on his head. Imagine. And that's when the Ganges is in its full force. Only a little manifestation in this world. But when the Ganges first enters into the universe, it's quite powerful. Not quite powerful, very powerful. And he takes it to protect the universe because the force of that water is so strong it could devastate. So he takes it and then it goes out to the stairs. On Lord Shiva's forehead is the emblem of the half moon. Yet to give some respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shiva placed the water of the Ganges above the emblem. This example should be followed by everyone, or at least by every devotee, because Lord Shiva is one of the Mahajans. And similarly, Maharaj Bali also later became a Mahajan. At this point, he looks like he's, king of the demons. But later he becomes a great Mahajan, great devotee, Mahajana, great personality. One Mahajan follows another Mahajan, and by following the parampara, or the cyclic system of Mahajan activities, one can become advanced in spiritual consciousness. The water of the Ganges is sanctified because it emanates from the toe of Lord Vishnu. Everything's coming from Lord Vishnu. And in one sense, everything is divine. But we can't see it. We're seeing it in relationship to ourselves. But the Ganges, particularly in this world, And the Lord appears in the form of water and wood as Mother Ganges and as Lord Jagannath. So very, very special form. It's a form of Krishna because it comes from his lotus feet, although it seems to be separate. Nonetheless, it has that potency, having touched the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. And it's said, there's a beautiful verse spoken by Lord Kapila Dev, which describes how just as the thunderbolt of Indra smashes mountains to pieces, similarly, one who meditates on the lotus feet of the Lord, this process smashes all sinful desires to shreds. By meditates on the lotus feet of the Lord. Prabhupada said, meditation in this Kali Yuga means to chant the holy. Meditating on the lotus feet in this Kali Yuga means to chant the Mahamantra. And it's described, that's why the Ganges water is very powerful, because it has come from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. That's why contacting the Ganga, it removes our sinful karmas, etc. Of course, there's more to it than that. In terms of just removing the karmas, one has to remove the seeds or the tendencies, the bijas, the kutas, the desires and the tendencies for material life are not so easy to remove as the reactions, which may come in the form of whatever, sinful reactions or something. But the tendencies for engaging in sinful activity, that has to be changed. And in that regard, we'll see how Krishna deals with that in future verses. The water. Bali Maharaj, who perfectly knew all religious principles, therefore took that water on his head, following in the footsteps of Lord Shiva. Because Lord Vamadev is Vishnu, and he poured water on his feet, which went another aspect, which sometimes in the West we have a hard time with it. People think someone's puffed up when they receive, when they go to someone's house and people bathe their feet, and you think this person is getting his feet bathed is very puffed up. But in India, in many parts, especially in the south of India, Maharashtra specifically, and noticed, but in other parts also, it's the custom, practically speaking, any visitor who comes to one's house, one washes their feet practically. One sees them as a representative of God. Not that they are not God, but everyone is part and parcel of God. The Lord is the super soul in the heart. And this is it really breaks down any resistance. You go to someone's house, and even though you've come with an agenda, they wash your feet, and you feel like, There's other more things to it. You could say you may not want to have your feet washed. There's a karmic factor involved, but still, nonetheless, it's a tradition of respect. They offer you flowers. Sit down, you please stand on a little platform on the flowers, and they bathe your feet. Even arti, they do arti sometimes. They're so respectful. They know the secret of, of receiving guests. You're supposed to offer them then, after that, some refreshment, then a place to rest. You ask them, is there anything you need? Please let me know. And offer a nice, comfortable place to rest and so on. You make your guests feel completely at home, and you get so much sukriti benefit from this. That's the good personality that leaves so much good karma in your home. You satisfy them. So there's material. So what to speak of somebody who's on the spiritual platform, and we receive them with a proper reception. How much benefit is there, both materially and spiritually? This science was common practice. This culture was common. Nowadays it's rarer and rarer, more rare. But it's still there in some cultures, even in Muslims it's there. I know in Malaysia many times we would be going Sankirtan all the time. But we go door to door. And many times you come to a Muslim's house. We wouldn't preach, but sometimes they would say, please come in, and they would give you a seat and very kind reception, bring you some fruits and water and so on. And yes, there's still some culture left there. Many people. Not so common in the Western world. You get greeted by a vicious dog in many cases. Its only intention is to chase you away. I went about 2 weeks ago. We had our 50th anniversary of the Prabhupada's arrival in Paris, huh? And the next day, on our way here, we went to the first house where Prabhupada stayed on his first visit to Paris, in Fontenay Road. I think Mandakini was there in those early days also. Small house there, which Krishna Prasaya's father had found in the south of Paris. So we went there to see it, and we found it, no problem. But we couldn't approach it. There were two very intolerant, let's put it mildly, intolerant dogs, extremely angry at seeing us. They were on the balcony, and as soon as they saw us from a little distance, roaring like anything, the resident, whoever that was, lady, came out. We couldn't really. I mean, maybe we didn't try. It looked like it was. Maybe she's got fed up with Hare Krishna people for unknown reasons coming to her house. Some kind of nightmare or something. And she keeps getting these Martians coming to her home, dressed in bed sheets and silk saris or something. But there's so many people that have this fear, so much fear. In this Kali Yuga. Afraid, just like maybe you don't know, but in Durban, you may have read that.
Yes.
In Durban, this week, I don't know what the update
Even
news
now,
is.
5 days now.
Yeah, but in Durban, this week, there have been, not only Durban, in many cities in South Africa, there have been riots, big riots, burning shopping malls. Shops are being looted, smashing everything. The police and the army just can't keep up with it. And they were right next to our temple in Chatsworth. 2,000, a mob of 2,000 wild people. They're smashing everything. So the devotees evacuated the temple. They took the deities out of the temple. The temple's empty. Yeah, they had to take the deities out for security. Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj didn't know what to say. He said, it's just unbelievable. He just doesn't know they don't know what's going on. Nobody knows. Maybe it's calmed down now, I don't know. That was 2 days ago. So, Kali Yuga.
What's the cause?
Huh? Oh, who knows what the cause is. Maybe, I mean, I'll tell you, when we were in Nairobi, I lived there quite a while, we would go to Matari Valley. Matari Valley is where all the, what are they called? Like you have in Paris, all these refugees from Syria, all the refugees from Ethiopia, Uganda, and Rwanda, Burundi, and this country and that country, and from Congo. They all come to Kenya because it's a bit more stable there. But there was like a ghetto of 100,000. They guessed along the riverbank called the Matari Valley. I don't know if it's still there or not. And not even a policeman would not dare go nearby. It wouldn't survive. It's just heavy place. We used to go to the side regularly to do Food for Life, protected vehicle, with iron grills, and it was so dangerous. If you didn't have enough food to feed everybody who wanted it, you had to drive rapidly away from that place. You'd be attacked with stones and rocks and people on the street just chasing you. Even in Belfast, I mean, who knows what the causes of these things are? just sheer, madness. I remember one time we were in Belfast, we were traveling with Gurudas Swami at that time on a bus. And there's Belfast, even today, and Bhagavati, she's maybe not in the room, but she knows very well, even today there's about a 25, 30 foot fence between, the Catholic area and the Protestant area.
Really?
Yes, even today. It's not so much like the Berlin Wall, it's like a fence, just like a wire fence, these mesh fences. So it separates it. And right in the middle of the road, there's like this fence there, just to keep them apart. They're still like cats and dogs, I mean, what's it called? Why does a cat, why does a dog attack a cat? There's no, there's just something in their nature, They can't help it when they see you go down the street, and I remember when Pragosh was there, he told us when he was a younger devotee in Sankirtan, he went down this one street, didn't know where he was, and suddenly people came out with guns. Stop! Who are you? I'm Hare Krishna. How are you? Hare Krishna. Are you Catholic or Protestant? Catholic or Protestant? Luckily he knew which area he was in, and he said he was the right one. Okay, you can go. They would shoot you if you were in their street. If you were not Catholic or Protestant, that's which side of the fence you're on. And when we were there, we went to, there's a place called Falls Road, which is in the center of the Catholic area. We went there on Prasad, food for life distribution. As soon as we got the buckets out, boom, they invaded. The buckets flew all over the place. We ran, they were chasing us with sticks and stones, And we jumped in the bus and bang, bang, bricks hit in the bus as we drove away. Madness. Animals. So you can't say why, it's just the nature. For some reason, they're frustrated. Doesn't do any good. I mean, you just destroyed all your opportunities to change things. But they don't think like that. It's just anger, sheer anger and frustration. Values especially. But that certainly wasn't the case in his yoga. Although a little bit comes up like that with Shukracharya. He also protested against the arrival of Vamanadeva, and we'll hear that in future verses, but in Bali Maharaj was very happy. Whatever you want, if you had faith in God, he was supposed to be a demon. If he had faith, whatever happens, good, let it be. But that's not the case with most people. Envy and anger and lust and greed. People are not on the human platform. Not surprising they behave like cats and dogs. They're educated to become like cats and dogs. Grab, get. And people, I remember looking one time, I think it was in either Zambia or Botswana, I can't remember. But, there's tremendous poverty at one time, tremendous. And it's like, and the leader, it's quite, like a joke, living in a massive mansion. And right outside are all these, poverty-stricken people. And it's right, what type of leadership? Exploitative nature. It's not surprising people become a little bit agitated also. This is on the other side of the fence too. Leadership is corrupt. Yeah. You get that in France too, people get uptight, the yellow jackets a few years ago. Angry about different things. Never satisfied, no matter what you've got. Even if you get what you want, you're still not satisfied. This is a secret, one of the secrets of this pastime also, that happiness doesn't come about by accumulation and consequent fear. That is not. It comes from a different way. Bali Maharaj is going to teach us the higher principle. That's why he became a Maharaja. I don't want to say what that is. That will come from a few verses down the line. Are there any questions? coming to take the tents away today. At least 2 of them. Not the nice one out there on that lawn. I think that the mayor will have a heart attack if he sees that. You see that mangled mess out there? That was the mayor's tent.
That was the mayor's tent.
Yeah, the mayor's tent. We're going to have to pay for that. Yeah. If we'd known that storm would have come, we would have definitely taken that tent down, because that was. Did you know that was the biggest storm in Europe in 100 years? Right. We only got the edge of it here. Storm more into Belgium, Germany.
In Switzerland as well.
Huh?
Switzerland.
Yeah, I mean the whole Central Europe got it really heavily, but Germany got it worse than Belgium. Parts of Switzerland and Holland and North France. We got the edge. Most rain in 24 hours in 100 years. Hare Krishna, be prepared. You never know who may come. You never know that is coming. Be careful. And a special person has come in disguise sometimes. Receiving guests. This is a beautiful lesson here on receiving guests. Who are you? Who are you? What are you doing here? Don't you know you're not supposed to come here? That's often the case. Call the police, quick! I'm talking in general. But you know, you go to somebody's door, and the person inside will call the police. They look through these little holes to see if they're beady eye. You got these buttons to press now. Is it? Mile away from where they live or something. Yes, who's there? I'm from the Hare Krishna movement. I wanted to show you some book. Forget it.
We had this in Sarsen.
Oh, you didn't? Even in Sarcelles? Oh my goodness.
We went to some place, and when we was in the apartment, we went to one door, and it was a Turkish, I think.
Turkish.
And she says, "Go away, or I will call the police." So we didn't ring again, and we just start to go to another door, literally another stairs, and she continued to say, "Go away from this building, or we call the police."
Goodness,
So we came out of the building, and from the window she continued to say, "Go away, or I call the police."
Go away from Sarcelles or I'll call the police. Go away from Paris or I'll call the police.
Get off the planet. Or
Get off the planet. Get out of the universe.
She was so good.
People think they're so damn proprietors of things. We own. Illusion that we're in. Hare Krishna. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Mantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaura Premanand. So tomorrow, text 29 onwards, for those anyone who's writing the board, and that will take you to the end of the chapter.
What did they have?
Which verse?
29.
29 for tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
but there's no purport for
Oh, it's okay.
the rest of the chapter.
Okay.
But you can talk on the subject as you wish.
Okay.
Krishna. Thank you, Mandakini, for translating.
Oh yeah. Did you call me? No, I thought you called my name too.
Hare Krishna. Krishna. One, two.